flipped the switch, did Magellan, and once I see myself pop up on live, should be any minute now. All right, there we are. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me here at the First Alert Desk. My name is Tori Cooper, and hopefully you are enjoying your weekend, getting outside. Absolutely beautiful out there. We have a few stories that we're working on this evening, but we definitely are staying on top of a story that has been developing over the course of the last 2 days, and that's the main story that I want to talk about today and this evening, because that's the story that we're going to be pouring a lot of our energy into in terms of developing it more. And that's the story surrounding 22-year-old Laken Riley. She was a former UGA student and a current Augusta nursing student who unfortunately is now the center of a homicide investigation after her body was found near a lake on the campus of UGA the other day. And luckily, a suspect has been arrested since then, and that came in before 7 o'clock last night, and then we were debriefed by the law enforcement officials in Athens, Clark County last night, and that's when we learned a lot more about the suspect. So I do want to let our Atlanta News First reporter, Madeline Montgomery, bring you up to speed about what students are now calling for on UGA's campus as it relates to safety protocol and measures that are in place right now and what they want to see changed after this happened. We saw classes be put on pause temporarily, and this really has the entire Athens community on high alert tonight. So definitely going to bring you up to speed on that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what Governor Brian Kemp said today in relation to what happened. And now we have more calls for the president to take action on immigration after learning that the suspect was an undocumented immigrant. So let's take you through that story, and then we'll segue into what Governor Brian Kemp talked about. Hopefully there's audio, and if there isn't, actually, before we do that, Ellie, I know I need to bring one of these up. Can you come show me which one that is before I take the package, because I can already tell it's going to... that one of these should be turned up. I just always forget which one it is. We're a one-man band over here, guys. It's this one? Yeah. But the volume. Oh, okay. Huh?
Unmute yourself.
Oh, they're actually playing. Can you go check on me? I love you, man. Thank you so much.
We got it working.
No?
It's saying there's...
And I just think to myself that that would be really nice to have here. And when you come here, you notice that we don't have any.
In 24 hours, over 15,000 people signed.
I'm honestly very impressed. I think that it's very heartwarming to see like all of Camp seeing the coroner car and all the police cars parked out there.
An ominous sight at a popular place to enjoy nature at the University of Georgia.
I was very scared when I heard the news.
The news that
It looks like
Riley had
there
been
is stuff
murdered on
happening, but
campus.
it's going to probably be a
Amanda,
little
senior
delayed on your
student
end.
at UGA who doesn't want to be identified due to safety
Really?
concerns. Think about how safe her campus is.
It's generally safe because the people here are nice and generally have good intentions, but if someone were to have bad intentions or be opportunistic about the fact there's like no good lighting on campus, or if someone doesn't have their phone charged, then they're kind of screwed if they're out at night.
That's why she started a petition to install emergency blue lights.
Whenever I'm visiting other campuses like Emory or Georgia Tech, I notice the blue lights around campus, and I just think to myself that that would be really nice to have here. And when you come here, you notice that we don't have any.
In 24 hours, over 15,000 people signed.
I'm honestly very impressed. I think that it's very heartwarming to see like all of campus come together and say that we want at least some tangible solution to happen out of this really terrible situation.
UGA was one of the first colleges in the country to install emergency blue lights in 1988, but they were removed in 2004 to save money when they weren't used very often. The school's website says over an 8-year span, UGA police received only 7 calls from call boxes, none of which were of an emergency nature. The chief of campus police was asked about security measures following the recent murder.
This was a very isolated incident. We haven't had a homicide at the University of Georgia in almost 30 years.
That doesn't necessarily bring comfort to all.
Knowing that this was a crime of opportunity and it could happen again, so unless there's like more lighting or safety measures like cameras, then I'd feel safer going back.
So that's where we're at now. You can tell students want to see change after all of this. That's where we are now in this investigation. You can tell students want to see change, administrators want to see change, and now I want to talk a little bit about Governor Brian Kemp and the statement that he released today in following what happened. So after we learned last night that the suspect and his brother were both undocumented immigrants in this country, Governor Brian Kemp released a statement. Now, I'm going to read just part of that statement, but I did have a chance to cover a recent announcement that Governor Brian Kemp made at the Capitol, and I just want to give you a little bit more context of where this is all coming from in terms of this conversation about illegal immigration and the state of Georgia. So, Governor Brian Kemp took the podium about a week, not even 2 weeks ago, about a week ago, and he said that he was sending 12 to 14 additional state National Guardsmen to the U.S. southern border to help assist Governor Governor Greg Abbott, who is the Texas governor, the governor in Texas, who has been come under fire recently for his handlings of immigration and the border at Eagle Pass, which has become the epicenter of the immigration issue. So Governor Brian Kemp said that he wanted to do anything he could to assist Governor Abbott in his efforts to control illegal immigration, as well as illegal drug trafficking, and as well as criminals coming into this country. He said that they weren't going to be arresting people, but setting up essentially a camp to help assist in any way that they could, which includes surveillance, maintenance of vehicles, and essentially just giving more back-end support is the way he described it. And so, this has been, on the other side of this, people have said that this rhetoric is harmful to immigrants in this country, They have felt that, I spoke to some of the other people, leaders in the Senate here in Georgia, and they talked about the fact that, anytime we hear this rhetoric, it makes immigrants in this country who may be legal feel targeted. So that was what came out of that last week. But today, Governor Brian Kemp wrote a letter to President Joe Biden. He has been very critical of the president in his handlings of immigration since he took office. He poured out some of the numbers in this statement, saying that over 9 million illegal immigrants have crossed into this country since the Biden administration took office. And he also talked about the amount of drugs that have poured into the country, criminals that have poured into the country after that. And he also went on to talk about how that tied into the homicide investigation involving 22-year-old Laken Riley. So I'm going to read a bit of this just so that you can get an idea of what he said. So he said, "While the dangers of this crisis have never been theoretical, this week our state witnessed a devastating tragedy. Laken Riley, a 22-year-old nursing student at Augusta University and beloved member of the University of Georgia community, was found dead near UGA's East Campus intramural fields on Thursday. After her death was ruled a homicide, state and local law enforcement officials coordinated and identified, located, and eventually arrested the suspect and murderer. This coordinated effort resulted in the arrest of Jose Antonio Ibarra, a Venezuelan national, on multiple charges, including malice murder, It has since been revealed by the United States Department of Justice that the investigation into Lake and Riley's murder also resulted in the arrest of his older brother, Diego Ibarra, on charges of possessing a fraudulent U.S. permanent resident card. Then he went on to say, furthermore, despite having been arrested on multiple occasions since September of 2023 on charges ranging from driving under the influence to shoplifting, your Department of Justice has confirmed that Diego Ibarra, which again is the suspect's brother, has been released back into the community while his asylum claims are being processed. So basically, they're saying, the suspect's brother was released back into the community after being arrested on several different occasions. And then now we see the suspect and Jose Antonio, Mr. Ibarra, also his brother, now is arrested in connection to the murder of a 22-year-old girl who went on a run to get some exercise. So, this is a lot to unpack, but, he essentially is blaming the president's administration for their handlings with immigration right now and saying that it's having a direct impact here in Georgia and on the people who live here. So, that was a fiery statement from the governor. You can view it on our Atlanta News First website. If you look for that, you can definitely find it. And we're definitely going to be sharing more about that letter that he sent later on in our newscast tonight. So if you want to see more details, tune in for that. But that was really the big part of the story that developed today, because that conversation about immigration now came into play and was put on the center stage of how it correlated to what happened in Athens. So again, we're staying on top of any new statements from local leaders, lawmakers, as well as we are keeping close tabs on her family at this time, because we do want to make sure that they're getting the respect and space that they need. And tonight we are going back down to Athens to gather some more intel and details that we can share with you right here on Atlanta News First. So look for our update at 8 p.m. right here on the First Alert Desk. We will hopefully have developed the story more and have some additional details for you on the UGA homicide investigation. And if we learn anything, you'll hear about it first right here. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. I like to keep it short. I don't like to bog you guys down with too many details. It looks like we have a few comments, though, and usually I don't always get a chance to look at this. Let's see if there's anything worth noting here. Okay, so Friedman's channel, they said, what kind of change? There was some vulgar language used there, but they want to see call boxes reinstated. Okay, some of you are saying that UGA's campus police force is too small. I went to UGA, and mind you, it was a number of years ago, so there was always police around, but it is a smaller county, so I imagine they would have not as many police officers. Very sad, of course. This is horrible. A lot of you are saying that. All right, to carry protection. Hey, that's a worthy part of this conversation. Someone is saying UGA should allow statements to carry protection if they don't now. That's a layered issue, right? You have people who are college students, and now you bring in the conversation about, arming students potentially with weapons. That's always something that's difficult, a difficult topic to talk about, and there's probably several people on both sides of that argument. So this story continues to generate a lot of conversation. I really appreciate you guys coming on here, getting our updates, and continuing to rely on Atlanta News First to be your source for local news, because we're going to get the extra layers, right? National is going to be leaning on us, the CNNs, the MSNBC News, the Fox News. They're going to be leaning on their local media outlets to really get the details that they don't necessarily get, and that is one of the best parts about being a local journalist. So continue to rely on us for this reporting, and we'll share as much as we can. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, again, for joining me, and tune in later on this evening at 8 p.m., as well as our 6 o'clock newscast on WANF. Then we have another newscast at 11 on WANF, and then on Peachtree TV, it looks like we also have a 10 o'clock show tonight. So stick around.